This video has been very kindly sponsored by the lovely folks over at Squarespace. So, I got the Hikala art box, and I got this, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I've been waiting to like fully open it because I wanted to do it on camera. So I've just had this sitting, staring at me. I've opened it a little bit because I took some pens out and stuff, and I have another one of them. But like, one, look how beautiful these are. Just so good. And then when you open it up here, it's a little like thank you. And these illos of the freaking supplies in the box, incredible. And then we open it up and we get all this goodness. Let me see if I can get a slightly better angle. This is like the little kind of introductory thing that like walks you through all the different supplies. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Oh my God, there's so much good stuff. Okay, so I've been putting this off again. So I opened this, I got like a little G-Tech. I also got the Pentel pocket brush, which is, may I say, so difficult to use. And every time I watch one of Heikala's like process videos, they make it look so easy. That shit is so hard because it's not like, you know, like a Pentel like sign brush or something like that, where it's like a little bit easier. It's like a little bit easier to maneuver in things. It is extremely difficult, in my humble opinion. That's really difficult to use, and I'm so impressed. And now, oh, I put it back in here, that's right. So this is a little like cardboard pencil box, and here's the Pentel pocket brush. So like, if I open, it also feels so weird to do an unboxing. I feel like a real hashtag influencer. So if you look at this, it's like a proper brush nib. This thing is so hard to control, and Heikala makes it look so easy, but it's fun to play with, so I'm excited about that. It also came with this amazing 0.3 fine liner. Do you want to focus on that for me? It came with this awesome 0.3 fine liner that is lovely, but because it is a felt tip, I kind of have to be, you know, you got to be gentle with it. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. Pentel little aquash brush. These are so great for traveling. The masking fluid that Heikala uses. I'm excited to play around with this. Again, these are just all supplies I've like never really used or played with, and I'm just very excited about it, and also so afraid, but trying to stay excited. And then there are two different erasers in here. So this is just a standard Tombow Mono eraser, and then this one is like a plastic eraser for color. And Heikala writes in the little guidebook that this is apparently really good for getting rid of colored pencil lines underneath paintings. So I think that'll be interesting to play with. Okay. Like, see, I haven't opened up a lot of this. This is, let's find out. Also, the tissue paper is so beautiful. Look at this. Look how pretty the tissue paper is. They're so good at what they do. This is, oh, this is the black ink. Cool. So this is one of the, I think, 7 inks that they included. This is poster paint, like poster color, which I think this is just used when you really want like opaque white bits in your painting. That's what I'm presuming. It has a wow, it has such a weird consistency, but that's that. Let's read what they say about it. Great for corrections and finishing touches, can be mixed with the ink to make pale tones of opaque color. It's used by some animation studios in Japan to make background paintings. Cool. Masking tape, just good old standard washi. I have so much washi tape, so I'm happy to add another one to the collection. And then these are the different ink colors. So this is violet, orange, and sap green. I've never painted with ink. I imagine it's like watercolor. I have this broken plate from our apartment that I've been using as a paint palette, just because like it's so cracked and it was kind of coming apart at home. So I was like, this isn't safe to eat on anymore, so I can use it to paint with. Because my other porcelain paint palette, I really need to clean. And unfortunately in my studio, I don't have a sink hookup. So, I didn't think that for some reason I didn't think about the fact that I would need a sink hookup, because like I have to wash brushes and stuff. That just didn't enter my brain. So we make do. So I guess we could open this. We can just open it up from this way, I guess. That makes more sense. So we have green, violet, and orange. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I also think about, I know Sophie McPike also paints with ink a lot. I think it would be interesting to try to just do like one color at a time. Do like monochrome color studies, just so I can get used to like handling it. Okay, let's see here. Also guys, look how good my nails look. I haven't been biting them lately. I've picked up my crochet hyperfixation again. And as a result, I haven't been biting my nails as much. Because if my hands are idle for even a moment, I bite my nails. So, and then this is yellow, magenta, and cyan, so our primaries. Beautiful. Again, these will be fun and challenging to play with because I've never painted with ink before. This was the last run of Heikala's art box set, and I wanted it so bad that I just bit the bullet. It was expensive, but I was just like, it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I was like, this is the last run, this is your last chance. So I just got it. And here was one of the pens, but also you have two paintbrushes. Beautiful paintbrushes. Gorgeous. And they have this cool little bottom thing that's good for getting rid of masking fluid. So cool. Wow, these are so pretty. Oh, they're Holbein. I also only realized recently that Holbein is actually it's a Japanese company, I think. Because everything's made in Japan. And then we have two polychromos. Yeah. Faber-Castell polychromos. Good colors. I think they use these for like under sketching, I think. These two color pencils are great for sketching on top of watercolor paper. When used lightly, you can't notice the sketches from underneath the paint. I try to use the same colored pencil as the color that I will use to paint on top of it for the most discreet result. Cobalt green and pink matter. Like, these are beautiful colors. I have a lot of Faber-Castell actually at home. I found that I prefer Prismacolor as of late. There was a moment when I was like really into polychromos, but I think currently I'm really into Prismacolor and the Caran d'Ache, the Caran d'Ache, like water soluble ones. Those ones are really cool too, but excited about these. And then we have two sketchbooks. So we have this one, which is, this is cold press. This is very good watercolor paper. Archival, is it cold press? Okay, so this is like very, very good watercolor paper that I will probably try and cherish. I have this sketchbook. I don't know if this is Hikala branded or this is just I think this is just this brand, which is amazing that they just have like a little cat as their logo. It's the same brand as this pen. They said this is the sketchbook that they use. Oh, wow. The paper is so textured. See, usually in my sketchbooks, I don't like it when my paper is this textured, but I think that this, again, it could be super fun to use and play around with. I'm just excited to have some new art supplies. So that, I also really want to keep, this box is so pretty. And then we have, last but not least, their business card. So if for some reason you don't know who Heikala is, go look at their work. They are like a watercolor master. I can't stress enough how good they are at watercolor. Watching them draw is incredible. They have a lot of process videos on Twitter and I think on their Instagram as well. But it's just like watching the way that they paint, watching the way that they sketch with pens and stuff. It's truly mesmerizing. So if you've never seen Heikala's work before, Please, please, please. Obviously, go check it out. Okay, I want to get everything in frame. There we go, look at that haul, yay! So now I have to figure out where I want to organize this. I will probably just put it on my little shelves in the corner. Cool, 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 cool. Before we get into the rest of the video, it's time for a sponsor break, which means I get to take this opportunity to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform where you can build the website, portfolio, online shop of your dreams. I have been using Squarespace to run my own website and online store for the last like 3 years, and I have loved using them. They have loads of beautiful templates that are super easy to customize. You don't need to know anything about code to make your website look amazing. They have loads of powerful e-commerce tools that make running an online shop easy, breezy, beautiful. For my other artistic folks out there, they also have smart image scaling, so you never need to worry about your images looking weird or grainy or whatever. And they have 24/7 customer support, so if you ever need help, they are there for you. If you yourself have been looking to build a website or a portfolio or something of the kind, something of that sort, you can go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to check out, you can go to squarespace.com/CheyenneBarton for 10% off your first purchase. Thank you again, Squarespace. And on with the rest of the video. Are my August Patreon stickers. So I like this one because it's like they're, you know, kind of resting on a cloud like it's a pillow. And this one says, I'm tired, and the tired is crossed out and says, I'm fine. I realized that this kind of looks like fired. Really, tired is an incredibly hard word to like strike out and not have it read as like fired or whatever, but I think these are really cute. I really like them. I'm excited for the postcard to get in. The postcard is, I don't think the postcards are gonna come in before I finish filming this, but I can put like the postcard, I don't know, just like put it here. This is what the postcard is. It's pretty cute. Oh, I also want to show you. So I've been stamping my Patreon envelopes with stamps to, I don't know, because that's what I was doing, but that takes so long. So I went ahead and actually got pre-printed envelopes. I think they're very cute. I'm really proud of this little banner down here. I think it's very, very cute. The alignment is a little bit off. That's my bad. I think when I submitted the Illustrator file. And then on the back it says, please recycle. These envelopes are made from 100% recycled paper. They do have this little thing where you peel it off and then it seals, just because frankly that makes my life significantly easier, and I know it's a little bit of unnecessary waste, but saves me a lot of time and a lot of headache. Unfortunately, some of the ink on these is a bit smeared, which is a bit of a bummer, but I guess that's what happens when you use like a bunch of black ink. It's not horrific, and it's mostly on like the tops here, but I'm really happy with how those turned out. So I'm actually really excited to pack my Patreon envelopes for this month. I also added, let me get it so you can see my face. So I was talking about my August Patreon rewards, which is a good segue. So I've been having a little bit of a, I've been calling it like a crossroads moment. Essentially, it's not like a crisis, but I'm kind of at like a career crossroads. Okay, so my memory card was doing something really weird. I don't know, whatever. Technology. Basically, I'm trying to, like I said, trying to reevaluate what I actually want to do. And so I think that, unfortunately, I think my shop is gonna be closed for a while longer, y'all. There's just a lot of things that I need to fix. I might do like a small run of like original work for Christmas time. Physical products are just going to be, it's gonna take a while for me to start selling physical products again. And so the reason why like I've added more stuff to my physical Patreon tier is because it's like, if you want stickers and like little postcard prints from me on the monthly, you can check out my Tangerine tier on Patreon, just because like probably gonna be the only spot that I'm going to be selling like, or like the only spot where I'm gonna be like distributing like physical products for a while I figure everything out. So that's why I've added new spots in case that's something you want to check out. And also you get access to all my other
Patreon content. So it's not like a one-time thing. It's a pretty good deal, IMO. But yeah, I'm just at this like crossroads and just trying to figure out what it is that I actually want to do with my time. And I'm trying to be like, okay, well, I know that there's like some, I don't know if I want to call it discourse. I also don't know if it's current. It might be old, but there's been some talk in like the like art, in my different art communities on all the different platforms I'm on, of like artists not really being enjoyed being called content creators, because they're like, my art is not content. Like I'm not like a content machine. And I think that sometimes the word content can be kind of, I think it's turned into something that's like rather reductive and feels very like commercial and stuff, because you think about how you have to create content for like brand engagement and like all this bullshit. But I think at its core, I personally don't have beef with the term content creator, because I feel like that's what I was before I was an illustrator. Like I was on Tumblr, I was running my study blog, and then I made YouTube videos about my bullet journal. And I was kind of using my bullet journal mostly for content for my study blur, because like, as much as I liked to pretend it was an effective method of planning for me, it absolutely wasn't. And now I realize it's like, oh, it's because you have ADHD, you fool. But then I made like, then I started making YouTube videos, and then I was prompted to open up a sticker shop with when like my study Instagram or like my bullet journal Instagram started kind of gaining traction. And then from opening my sticker shop, I realized that I wanted to pursue illustration in like a slightly more like in-depth capacity. And so as opposed to first being like an artist and then building like an online presence around that, I feel like mine was kind of opposite. And so I feel like I've been operating in a mindset where like I'm making art for the sole purpose of making content about it, so like I only make art when I need to make YouTube videos, when I need to like do stuff for Patreon, when I need to like, I don't know, create things for Twitch or whatever. And it's been feeling very much like I'm making art for my content as opposed to, or like for my different platforms, as opposed to centering my art and then making stuff around that. So I'm basically just needing to like flip my priorities, and I'm realizing more and more that I really like being in like a little art cave where I basically just spend a lot of time being quiet by myself and just making stuff all day. It brings me a great sense of like peace and joy. And I say that like I've been haunted. I call it my little content ghost. It's like a little ghost that hangs out, and like when I talk about metaphors about like my mental health, I often imagine like my brain is like an apartment. And I imagine like my anxiety as a roommate. I imagine like my ADHD as a roommate. And so like my little brain apartment is haunted by a content ghost who is basically just kind of like pops through the walls whenever I'm working on stuff and is like, hey, this would be great content. I'm like, I just want to paint without worrying about it being seen by a bunch of people. And it's like, but you could also record it and that would be cool. And I think that pressure has like put a bit of like has kind of damaged my relationship to my work. And so I'm trying to now mend that relationship. And so like last week, I think I was just having, I don't know if it's like a bad ADHD episode or what, but I was having like I was like really averse to making stuff. Like it just didn't, like it wasn't so much where it's just like, oh, I want to like, it wasn't so much like the feeling of discomfort where I may be working on something I'm not good at and I need to push through that feeling. It was just this feeling where it was just like, I do not want to draw. Like it feels weird. It feels wrong. I don't like anything about it. Which is a really scary feeling. And I felt I haven't had that feeling very often, like at all. And I felt sort of like, I basically just spent all day like trying to like encourage trying to figure out what to work on. And then by the end of the day, it would be like 5 o'clock and I would be exhausted because I'd used up all my brain power trying to figure out what to do, but I had nothing to show for it. And so I was like, I don't like this. This sucks. And so that is also like, restarted my like vigor in getting like a proper full diagnosis, which is something I just know I have to spend like a full day on. Sidebar, it sucks that I have to go through all this bureaucratic healthcare nonsense in order to like get a full neuropsych eval and get like properly assessed for ADHD like treatment and things like that, when ADHD makes it hard it makes it very, very hard to go through said bureaucratic process and like make the necessary phone calls and contact the necessary people and and I'm just like, how am I supposed to keep track of all of this? So I've asked my doctor to like write me a list, which she's done and I'm very grateful for. But again, it's just the kind of thing where I have to basically just set aside an entire day to do it. Anyway, it's not like, I'm not in like doomsday mode. I'm not in like, I'm not catastrophizing like I would have been maybe like 6 or 7 months ago. I'm just kind of like, this feels bad. We need to reassess. And so that's what I'm doing. And so I'm just trying to figure out like what I want to do, you know? Yeah. So I'm basically just figuring out what I want to do, figuring out what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and how to, I'm very lucky in that I have a career that I can kind of mold into whatever shape I need it to be. So I think that's also why instead of calling myself a content creator, I've been calling myself like a creator, because I feel like that's more of what I do. I just make things. I say that I usually just like to say I make art on the internet for a living, because I feel like that encompasses everything that I do without reducing it to like content. Because it's like I do make art on the internet for a living, whether that be my Instagram, my Patreon, YouTube, Twitch. I feel like all of the stuff I do, I put a lot of care and I put a lot of effort into, and I feel like it's just very closely like, it's also the thing where it's like, because all the stuff that I make is like very near and dear to me and I put a lot of my heart into it, I feel like oftentimes, again, it's the content ghost where it just kind of feels like it's like kind of, I feel like a lot of my life has been given to this idea of making content. And so I'm basically just kind of like, you know what, this is not what I need to be reduced to. And so I'm just sort of, just rediscovering who I am as an artist and as a person and all those things. Also, I can't believe it's only 11:50. I feel like I've gotten a lot done today. It's very exciting. Usually I don't feel this way. Usually I'm like, oh, it's 11:30, which means that it's almost noon, which means that it's almost 2, which means that it's almost 5. So I'm like, my work day is pretty much over. And I'm like, it's 11:30. You're just getting started. That's what's in my brain space, basically. So I was actually I started working on, so there's this Instagram account called Still Life, Still Here, Still Life. One of those, where basically every week they post like a really beautiful like still life photograph, and then basically throughout the week they repost people's renditions of said still life scene, and everything that they post, like all of the photos, all of their prompts are so good, and I've just never taken the time to like actually do it. And so I was working on it when I was getting coffee this morning. I was working on a little like digital painting of this week's prompt, and so I think I kind of want to work on that for a little bit. And then, like I said yesterday, I've got all this amazing new stuff from Hikala, which I really want to play with. And so I think that, and I finished all my admin work yesterday. Whoa! So I think that what I'm going to do is work on that Still Here, Still Life prompt a little bit more, and then just kind of fuck around with some ink. I'm very excited. Like I haven't worked traditionally in ages. I've like been working a little bit traditionally, like with gouache again, just in like a really kind of messy way, which has been really fun and freeing. And I think it's just like, I've just been watching, I think it's mostly Lee. I've just been looking at this. Lee's playfulness in her art is like so incredible to me. And I think that like she recently posted a video where it's like making art every day for a week, which I think is incredible, because like I love that even on days where like she feels very like about making stuff, she still, I don't know, somehow finds a way to like, I don't know if having fun with it is the right word. I just love her discipline around her work, and it's super admirable. I took so many good photos in Sweden that I would love to do landscape studies of. I have so much acrylic gouache that I feel like I really need to get through, but I really want to start trying out traditional gouache, even though I know the color shift is kind of intense, but I'm just really attracted to how it is you can reactivate it with water. Because again, as a person who gets distracted very easily, sometimes I use way too much paint, and then I end up wasting a lot of paint because it dries before I get a chance to use it all. And so I kind of want to do, like Jamie Green, they recently maybe not recently, but a while back, they essentially used, you know, cadmium red, I think cadmium yellow, blue, and white and black, I think, and made themselves, or maybe not black, maybe white, and made themselves like their own little gouache palette of like 12 colors, and they like mixed all the colors themselves and like put them in the pans and stuff. And I'm not very good at mixing colors. Like I know very little about color theory, but I think that could be really fun. And also just buying 3 or 4 gouache colors is way more affordable than buying like 25, especially with traditional gouache, because traditional gouache is defo a bit more expensive than acrylic gouache. So I don't know. But first, I'm going to play around with these inks and see what the whole deal with that is. I'm also thinking of Sophie McPike. Sophie McPike does a lot of like really beautiful like monochromatic ink work. I know that she also uses like a glass dip pen, which is rad. And so I kind of want to order one off of Etsy or something. Or maybe, I don't know, I could just go to like a local art shop or something. But yeah, I'm feeling jazzed about my work after like a really weird 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm very excited about it. And so I'm just trying to take advantage of the feeling. So I'm gonna eat lunch, probably watch more crochet YouTube videos, and then we're gonna get into some digital painting. Cool. Great. Onward. Onward. just like that, we've reached the end of another video. I had a lot of fun today. In my sketchbook for the first time in a long time. I've basically just like, with this weird art space I've been in, I've essentially just been like trying to think about having as much fun as possible and just being like getting rid of all preconceived notions of rules that I set down for myself and just like coloring like I'm a little kid and just not really thinking about anything. Taking a big page out of Lee Ellison's book, taking a big page out of Sophie McPike's work, and I'm just trying to have a grand old time. Use a lot of colors, just scribble around. Unfortunately, I don't have a sink in my studio, so painting isn't like as accessible. So like, you know, I have to go to the restroom down the hall to like wash my brushes, but it is what it is. I'm having fun, and that's the most important part. And I made like 2 pages today full of stuff that was like really delightful and enjoyable. So I count that as a huge win, TBH. So yeah, it's 4:10. I'm probably just gonna keep drawing for a little bit longer and then head on home for the afternoon, but I'm going to leave this video here. My next video should be quite fun if it ends up being the one that I think it's gonna be. I'm waiting for a shipment to come in next week. But I'm very excited to film that video, and I hope that you guys like it. Sweden video will be coming at some point. There's just so much footage, and so much of it is overexposed, so I've kind of lost the steam on like even making it, but we'll see. Yeah, thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much to my patrons for being wonderful and lovely and just absolute champions, all of you. I will be sending out the tangerine rewards this week as well. But yeah, I hope you're well. I'm quite sleepy now, but I don't want to get another coffee, so I'll just work through it. You're great. We will talk soon, I think. I'll see you when I see you. And stay frosty. Stay frosty out there. Okay, bye. I saw the signs and it opened up my eyes. I saw the signs. Okay. Is enough enough?